I'm 81 years old, and I lost my marriage after 40 years because I never listened. I say that plainly now, because there's no one left I need to soften it for. I'm sitting alone in a quiet house that still smells like her soap if I open the wrong drawer. The mornings are the hardest, not because of pain in my body, but because of the silence. Silence has a way of reminding you what you ignored when there was still noise. I'm not telling this because I want forgiveness. She's beyond that now, in a way that has nothing to do with death and everything to do with distance. I'm telling it because time is thin for me, and honesty feels lighter than pretending I did my best. I used to think listening was passive, something polite people did while waiting to talk again. I didn't understand it was an action, a choice, a kind of work. When I was younger, I believed marriage was something you built once and then maintained by staying put. I showed up. I worked. I paid the bills. I thought that was the promise. I met her when I was 23. She was 21, working part-time at a bookstore and finishing school. She had this habit of tilting her head when she listened, like she was trying to hear past the words. I noticed that about her early on. I liked how she made space for people. I didn't realize I'd slowly stop doing the same for her. Back then, I was proud of being dependable. I came from a family where men didn't talk much, but they stayed. Staying was love. At least that's what we told ourselves. We married young by today's standards. A small ceremony. Her mother cried. Mine didn't. I remember thinking, this is it. Life starts now. And it did. Jobs, apartments, then a house, children, 2 of them, a boy and a girl 2 years apart. Those early years were busy in a way that feels almost fictional now. Everything needed doing. Everything felt urgent. And in that rush, listening started to feel optional. She would talk to me in the evenings while I read the paper or watched the news. She'd tell me about her day, about the kids, about worries she couldn't quite name yet. I'd nod. I'd hum. I'd say things like, it'll work out, or don't worry so much. I thought reassurance was the same as understanding. I didn't realize it was sometimes a way of shutting someone down. She wasn't dramatic. She didn't raise her voice. She just kept talking a little less each year. I didn't notice that at first. Silence doesn't arrive all at once. It slips in quietly like dust. I was proud of my job. I worked long hours, not because anyone forced me to, but because I liked being needed. At work, people listened when I spoke. At home, I assumed I'd earned a kind of rest. I didn't think about the cost of that assumption. There were moments, small ones, easy to dismiss. Her saying, "Can you just sit with me for a minute?" Me saying, "In a bit," and meaning it, but never quite getting there. Her telling me she felt lonely even when we were in the same room. Me responding with logic instead of curiosity. I thought if I could explain things clearly enough, the feeling would go away. Feelings don't work like that. I know that now. In my 40s, life felt like a machine that needed constant tending. Kids' schedules, mortgage, promotions, repairs. Listening felt inefficient. I didn't realize I was training her not to speak. She tried different ways. Sometimes she'd get quiet. Sometimes she'd cry. Sometimes she'd get sharp. And I'd think she was being unfair. I used to tell myself she was too sensitive, that I was practical, that someone had to be. Looking back, that was the beginning of the end, even though we had decades left together. The end doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just takes notes. Our children grew up. They left. The house got quieter, and I thought that meant peace. She didn't. She said the quiet felt heavy. I said we were lucky. I remember one evening clearly. We were sitting at the kitchen table, just the 2 of us. She said, "I don't feel like you know me anymore." I laughed, not cruelly, but dismissively. Of course I knew her. We'd been married for over 30 years by then. I didn't hear the fear in her voice. I heard an accusation and went on the defensive. That night, she went to bed early. I stayed up, irritated, convinced I was right. That moment comes back to me often now, not because it was dramatic, but because it was honest. She was telling me the truth, and I treated it like a complaint. Years went on. We functioned well. Holidays, family gatherings, photos where we stood close but didn't touch. People thought we were solid. I thought so too, in a way. It wasn't until she got sick that I really saw the gap between us. Not a dramatic illness at first, just fatigue, doctor visits, worry. She talked more then, about fears, about regrets, about feeling unseen. And I listened more, but still not fully. I was scared of losing her, scared of hearing things I couldn't fix. Listening means accepting that you can't always solve what you hear. That was hard for me. One night in the hospital, she said, very calmly, "I don't think I can do this anymore." I thought she meant the illness. She meant the marriage. Even then, I misunderstood. She recovered physically, mostly, but something in her had already let go. We tried counseling late, too late. I sat there hearing words that sounded familiar but felt foreign. When the counselor asked me to reflect back what she'd said, I struggled. Not because it was complicated, but because I'd never practiced that kind of attention. After 40 years, she left. Not angrily, not suddenly. She said she was tired of feeling alone with someone beside her. The house felt enormous after that. Rooms I hadn't really seen in years suddenly felt empty. Every sound echoed. I replayed conversations in my head. Moments where I could have paused, asked a question, stayed quiet and let her finish. There's a particular kind of regret that comes from realizing the damage wasn't done by cruelty, but by absence. I wasn't mean. I just wasn't there in the way she needed. That's harder to forgive in yourself, somehow. We still speak occasionally, polite, careful, like people who once shared a language they no longer fully remember. She has her own life now. Friends who listen. A small apartment filled with plants and light. I don't begrudge her that. I just wish I'd been one of those people sooner. At 81, time feels different. Days are long, years are short. Memories crowd in when you least expect them. I think about all the time she tried to tell me who she was becoming. I was too busy being who I thought I needed to be. If you're listening to this and you're younger, I won't tell you what to do. I don't believe in instructions at this age. I'll just say this. Listening isn't waiting for your turn to speak. It's letting someone change you a little. I thought love was proven by endurance. Turns out, it's proven by attention. I don't have many years left. I know that. I make peace with it most days. But there are nights when I sit in the dark and think about how close I was to a different ending. Not a perfect one, just a quieter, fuller one. If this meant something to you, sit with it. You don't need to act right away. Just notice who's talking to you and how often you really hear them. As for me, I listen now. To the house, to my own thoughts. It's quieter than it used to be, and that's something I have to live with.